Have you ever known the words in your head, but your mouth just freezes? Do you want to speak English fluently but your tongue refuses to move? I've been there. And here's exactly how I broke through. Hi, my name is Olivia. I want to tell you something that changed my life. I didn't grow up speaking English. In fact, I was scared to even open my mouth, but something inside me knew I had to do it. If I wanted to live, work, and feel confident in the US, I had to force my mouth to speak English, even when it felt impossible. So today, I'm sharing my real story, how I forced my mouth to talk in English step by step. I still remember the night it started. I was sitting on the edge of my bed in my tiny apartment in Queens, New York, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The room was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic outside and the low hum of my old refrigerator. I had just come back from my shift at a small grocery store near Roosevelt Avenue. My body was exhausted, but my mind was more tired. Of holding words in, of feeling invisible in conversations, of pretending I understood when I didn't. I had lived in the US for almost a year, and yet every time someone spoke to me in English, I panicked. I knew what they were saying, but I couldn't make my mouth respond fast enough. The words were in my head, but my lips felt locked. I'd smile, nod, maybe give a short answer. But inside, I was drowning. I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? I studied English for years back home. I know the grammar. I know the vocabulary. Why can't I speak? That night, I realized something hard to admit. I had never trained my mouth to move in English. I only trained my mind. I had spent years reading, writing, and listening, but barely any time speaking, and especially not out loud alone, with nobody listening. I was always scared of sounding wrong, scared of my accent, scared of how awkward and broken it might come out. But in that moment, I understood the truth. If I don't force my mouth to talk in English, nothing will ever change. So I made a promise to myself, a small one, starting that night. I would speak out loud in English no matter how weird, ugly, or uncomfortable it felt. I wasn't going to wait for a conversation partner. I wasn't going to wait until I felt ready. I was going to start alone in my room with no pressure, no judgment, and no excuses. I took a deep breath and said the first sentence that came to mind. Hi, my name is Olivia. My voice cracked. It felt silly. I laughed at myself, but I said it again. Hi, my name is Olivia. Then I added another. I live in New York. I work at a grocery store. I kept going. Today I was tired. A man asked me where the cereal was, and I couldn't remember the word for shelf. I just pointed. I didn't care about mistakes. I just spoke. It was messy. Some words came out wrong. My tongue got stuck. But that night, I made it to 10 full sentences. I set a rule for myself, 10 sentences out loud every single night. At first, I had no structure. I talked about random things, what I ate, how my day went, how I missed home, how I wished I could ask my coworkers more than just hi, how are you? But little by little, it started to feel less strange. I began noticing small things, how some English sounds required different tongue positions, how th made my teeth touch my tongue, how or needed a curl in the back of my mouth. I repeated words slowly, focusing on the shape of my lips, words like world, girl. Third, I'd never said them out loud enough to really learn them, but now I was, over and over. In the mornings, I practiced again while brushing my teeth. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm getting ready for work. The train was late yesterday. I turned daily routines into speaking practice. It felt weird at first, but then it became part of my rhythm. I started describing everything I was doing in English. I called it my mirror talk. While washing dishes, I'd say, I'm washing this plate. I'm using hot water. This pan is hard to clean. When I folded laundry, I'd say, I have a lot of socks. Where did this shirt come from? I need to do laundry more often. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was trying to be active. I realized that fluency isn't about knowing perfect grammar. It's about being able to speak on the spot. I noticed something else when I spoke out loud. I made more mistakes than I did in my head. At first, that scared me, but then I understood it. Meant I was finally pushing my limits. My brain was no longer in safe mode. I was practicing in the real world of sound and voice where mistakes are necessary for growth. And as days turned into weeks, I got braver. I started reading short stories and repeating them out loud. Sometimes I'd watch clips from American TV shows, pause them, and try to imitate the lines. But I wasn't fully comfortable with that yet. I still needed more practice just being with my own voice, owning it, using it, making it familiar. I remember one night I tried to describe an entire memory in English. I closed my eyes and talked about the day I arrived in the US, how I felt at the airport, the taxi ride, the lights of the city. I stumbled through the sentences, but I kept going. That moment was important because for the first time, I wasn't just saying random words, I was telling my story in English. Something clicked inside me then. I felt proud. Not because it was perfect, but because I did it. My mouth didn't shut down. My voice didn't hide. I told a piece of my life in a language I was still learning. That's powerful. Over time, I became obsessed with using my mouth every chance I got. I whispered sentences in English, on the train, in the shower, walking home. It was like I had a secret mission to turn every silent moment into a speaking opportunity. I forced my muscles to move, even when I didn't feel like it. Even when I was tired or embarrassed, I knew this was the only way to break the wall. And guess what? My coworkers started noticing. Your English sounds smoother, one of them said. I smiled and replied, thanks, I've been practicing. She didn't know I had spent hours talking to myself in my bedroom, but I did, and it was working. I'll be honest, there were still bad days when my tongue froze, when I couldn't find the word I needed, when I felt like a fake. But I kept going because now I had momentum. And once you feel your voice come alive, you don't want to go back. One Friday evening, after finishing my shift, I walked into a small cafe near my apartment. I'd seen the same barista there every week. This time, instead of just ordering my usual latte, I decided to start a conversation. Hey, I said, busy day. He looked up and smiled. Yeah. Fridays are always packed. I paused, but just for a second. Then I replied, same. I work at the market down the street. Today was full of bananas and broken carts. He laughed. Sounds like retail. It was a simple, short moment, but for me, it was huge. I didn't freeze. I didn't translate in my head. My words came out. Not perfect, but real. That night, I walked home feeling light, like something inside me had shifted. I knew I was ready to take the next step. I had spent enough time talking to myself, repeating words and warming up my voice. Now, it was time to upgrade my practice. If I wanted to sound more natural, more like the Americans around me, I needed to go further. I needed to go beyond just speaking and start sounding like them. I had to copy native speakers. Not just the words, but their rhythm, their tone, their pauses, their energy. That would be my next move. That's how I'd level up from speaking out loud to speaking like a native. After weeks of forcing my mouth to move just by speaking out loud to myself, I could feel the difference. I was no longer silent. I wasn't hiding behind fear. Every day, I carved out little moments to talk in English while brushing my teeth, walking to work, waiting for the subway, or washing dishes. These simple routines became powerful tools. And even though my English was still far from perfect, I could feel the language coming out of me. My sentences were short but real. My voice wasn't afraid anymore, but something started to bother me. Even though I could form sentences and express basic thoughts, I still didn't sound like a real English speaker. I sounded like someone trying to speak English. My words were slow, my rhythm felt robotic, my voice didn't match what I heard in real conversations. I was proud of the progress I'd made, but deep down, I knew I still didn't feel like I belonged. And then it hit me one evening while watching a YouTube video. It was a vlog from a girl named Rachel who lived in Los Angeles. She was just talking about her weekend, nothing fancy. But the way she spoke was so smooth, casual, and real. Her voice went up and down. She used little phrases like kinda like. Seriously though, and honestly, and it wasn't just her words, it was how she said them. Her tone, her flow, her attitude, it was so naturally American. I paused the video, rewound it, and played it again. Then I tried saying what she said, word for word. I copied her rhythm, her tone, her pauses. I watched her mouth and tried to move mine the same way. At first, I sounded awkward, like a bad impression. But I kept trying, and that's when everything started to change. That night, I decided to go all in. I made it my mission to copy native speakers, not just their words, but how they spoke. I wasn't just practicing English now, I was studying the sound of American English, the melody, the music, the feeling. I picked a short clip less than 2 minutes. It was a casual conversation from a podcast between two friends talking about their favorite food spots in New York. I played the first sentence, paused it, then said it myself. Here's what one of the girls said. "Oh my gosh. I literally cannot stop thinking about those tacos, it's insane." I paused, took a breath, and repeated it. "Oh my gosh, I literally cannot stop thinking about those tacos, it's insane." The first few times I was stiff, my voice sounded flat. I wasn't matching her energy or flow, but I didn't stop. I repeated it 10 times. Then I tried to say it with the same attitude, the same bounce in her voice. I let my mouth stretch and move like hers. Then I moved on to the next sentence. I realized this kind of practice was different from what I did before. Speaking out loud was about building confidence, but mimicking native speakers was about building natural fluency. It was how I could make my English sound alive. So every morning before work, I picked a new clip. Sometimes it was a YouTuber, sometimes a TED Talk, and sometimes just a TikTok rant. I didn't care about the topic. I cared about the voice. I wanted voices that were fresh, authentic, and totally American. I'd play a line, pause, and mimic it out loud. Then again. Some lines I repeated 20 times if I had to. I watched their facial expressions, their hand gestures, how they emphasized certain words. I copied all of it. There was one phrase I struggled with for days. "Are you kidding me right now?" I heard it in a Netflix show, and the way the character said it was so fast and emotional. "Are you kidding me right now?" At first, my version sounded stiff. "Are you kidding me right now?" But I kept practicing over and over. "Are you kidding me?" Suddenly, it started to roll off my tongue. It felt like music. It felt American. That's when I realized American English isn't just a language, it's a rhythm. It's about stress and intonation. Some words pop, some glide, some fall off like they barely matter. I never learned that in textbooks. No grammar lesson taught me how to feel English in my body. Copying native speakers changed that. I also started paying attention to filler words, those little things Americans say without thinking. Like, honestly, literally, whatever, seriously. At first, I thought filler words were bad, but then I noticed everyone uses them. It's part of what makes conversations feel relaxed and real, so I started using them too. Not in every sentence, but when they fit naturally. Instead of saying, I am not sure, I'd say, I'm not really sure, instead of saying, it was very difficult. I'd say, it was really hard. I felt weird doing it at first. But the more I copied how Americans talk, the words, the tone, the flow, the more comfortable I felt. And I didn't stop there. I started recording myself. Yep, I know, it sounds terrifying. I hated my voice at first, but I needed to hear myself. I needed to compare my speech to the original, so I'd play a clip, copy it, then record my version. I'd listen to both. Did my intonation match? Did my energy sound similar? Did I sound natural or mechanical? It was like vocal training, and it worked, little by little. My mouth started remembering how to speak like an American. Not just because I knew the words, but because I had trained the muscles to move a certain way, just like learning a song or a dance. The more I mimicked native speakers, the more automatic it became. At the coffee shop, I started saying, hey, can I get a small vanilla latte, with the same casual tone I copied from a barista tutorial on YouTube. At work, when someone asked how I was doing, I didn't just say, I'm fine. I said, good, how about you? The exact way I heard it in so many American conversations. I felt like I had finally unlocked something. And it wasn't just about speaking, it was about connection. Because when you speak like the people around you, you don't just use the same language. You start to belong. I felt more included. People reacted differently. They didn't slow down their speech as much. They responded with energy. They smiled more. Because I sounded like me, not just like a second language speaker trying to keep up. I still made mistakes, of course, but the difference was, now I didn't sound like I was guessing. I sounded like I was communicating with confidence, with flow, with identity. One day, my manager said to me during our morning meeting, you've gotten way more comfortable in English lately. I smiled and replied, yeah, I've been working on it hard. He nodded and said, it shows. That's simple. Exchange felt like a medal, and then something even better happened. I started helping other people at work who were struggling with English. A new coworker from Brazil asked me how I learned to speak so smoothly, and I told her I copy Americans, like word for word, every day. She laughed, but I meant it. I wasn't afraid to say it, because it worked. So if you're like me, someone who knows English but feels stuck at the speaking level, this is my advice to you. Find voices you admire, watch them, listen to them, and then copy them. Don't just memorize words. Don't just study grammar. Copy the people, copy their tone, their pace, their emotion. Say it 10 times. 20 times, 100 times if you need to. Record yourself, laugh at your mistakes, keep going. Because fluency doesn't come from silence. It comes from repetition, imitation, practice. Again and again until your mouth becomes familiar with the flow of real English. That's how I trained myself to sound American. And once I felt that rhythm in my bones, I knew I was ready to take my English into the real world, not just in my room, not just through videos, but into real conversations with real people. And that's what I did next. After months of pushing myself, first by speaking out loud alone, and then by mimicking native speakers word for word, I had built something I didn't have before: vocal strength. It was like going to the gym, but for my mouth and brain. My sentences became smoother, my rhythm more natural, and my voice didn't crack with fear anymore. I could feel the American tone creeping into my English, especially in the little things, the the for real, the way I said totally without thinking. But despite all that private progress, something inside me still felt Stuck, because here's the thing, I still wasn't using my English in real conversations. And that was a problem. Speaking to a mirror, to a video, or to myself was great for practice, but real conversation, that's where the real challenge lived. It's unpredictable. You can't pause and re-record. You can't rewind and try again. It happens live, and it forces you to respond, not just rehearse. And honestly, that thought scared me to death. What if I froze mid-sentence? What if I misunderstood someone and nodded like a fool? What if someone laughed at me, not with me? These questions ran through my head all day. But at the same time, another part of me, stronger, louder, kept saying, Olivia, you're ready. You've trained for this. Stop hiding. So I made a promise to myself, one real English conversation a day, every single day. It didn't have to be long, it didn't have to be deep, it just had to be real. My first mission started with the barista at the coffee shop down the street. I had always gone in, ordered my drink in the shortest way possible, small vanilla latte, please, then walked out fast like I was avoiding something, but not this time, this time. I stood in line, repeating my new phrase in my head. Hey, how's your day going? I was nervous, my palms were sweaty. But I wasn't going to back down. I stepped up, looked her in the eye, smiled, and said it. Hey, how's your day going? She blinked, probably surprised I asked. Then she smiled back, pretty good. Actually, it's been a little slow this morning, and just like that we were talking, I replied, nice, I work nearby. Fridays are usually crazy for us. We exchanged a few more words. She handed me my drink, and I walked out feeling like I just won a mini Oscar. That tiny, awkward conversation lit a fire inside me. The next day, I did it again, this time at the grocery store. A guy in the produce aisle dropped a tomato, and I said, oops. That guy didn't make it. He laughed, and we had a short back and forth. He joked about being clumsy. I responded with a smile and a full sentence, and the moment passed, but I had spoken. Every day, I kept finding small windows for interaction. Asking a stranger for directions, chatting with the cashier about her nail polish, making a small joke about the weather while waiting for the bus, complimenting a coworker on her earrings. None of these moments were groundbreaking, but each one was a brick in the foundation of my confidence, and together, they built a new version of me. At first, I stumbled a lot. I repeated myself. I spoke too softly. Sometimes I didn't understand what someone said, and I had to ask, sorry, can you say that again? That felt embarrassing, but I kept doing it anyway. Because I knew that fluent English doesn't live in perfection, it lives in real moments. I remember one awkward moment clearly. I was waiting for my coffee at a local shop, and I tried to join a conversation between two girls talking about a Netflix series. I had just started watching the same show, so I said, hey, sorry to interrupt, but are you guys talking about The Night Agent? They looked at me, a little surprised. One girl said, yeah, we are. You watch it? I nodded quickly and replied, yes. That scene in episode 3 when the car explodes, I didn't expect that. They laughed, and one of them said, right? It came out nowhere. We chatted for a few minutes. I didn't say much, but I didn't freeze, either. Later that night, I replayed the whole thing in my head. Did I say everything right? Maybe not. Was I scared? Totally. But did I do it? Yes, and that's all that mattered. One of the best changes happened at work. I had a co-worker named Megan, sweet, friendly, super chatty. She'd always tried to talk to me during breaks, but I used to shut down because I was afraid I wouldn't understand her slang or fast speech. But one afternoon, I decided to lean in. She asked, so, what do you like to do after work? I smiled and said, lately, I've been watching a lot of YouTube, mostly food videos and English learning stuff. She Laughed, nice, I'm obsessed with baking channels. I've probably watched every cake video on the internet. That opened the door to more conversations. Soon, we were talking about movies, weekend plans, office drama, and all of it in English. Real English, not slow, not scripted, just two people chatting. And you know what? I wasn't scared anymore. I started jumping into conversations without thinking too much. I joined group lunches. I made small jokes during meetings. I even asked my boss about a podcast she recommended, and we had a full conversation about it. Each awkward step turned into a confident stride. One weekend, I challenged myself to go to an English-speaking meetup group in Manhattan. It was hosted at a public library, and people from all over the world came to practice their English. We sat in a circle, introduced ourselves, and then broke into smaller groups to discuss a topic. Our topic was, what makes a good friend? I spoke for almost 5 minutes straight. I shared a story about my best friend from back home, how we lost touch after I moved, and how I was trying to rebuild friendships here in New York. When I finished, a woman from Colombia leaned over and whispered, "Your English is really natural. I thought you were a native." I nearly cried. Not because I believed her, but because for the first time someone else saw the effort I'd been putting in. And it didn't stop there. I started FaceTiming with friends in English. I helped a tourist couple find their hotel when they were lost in Brooklyn. I joined an online book club. I started using English in texts and emails on social media. It wasn't just a skill anymore, it was my language now. Sure, I still made mistakes. I still blanked on words or mispronounced things sometimes, but the fear was gone because I had trained myself to speak, trained myself to mimic. And now, I had trained myself to use it in real life, and that's the part no one talks about enough. You can read all the books, watch all the lessons, memorize all the grammar, but until you use English in real life, it stays in your head. To make it real, you have to feel the tension of not knowing the perfect word and keep talking anyway. You have to get used to people looking at you, waiting for your sentence, and saying it anyway. You have to embrace the awkward silences, the stumbles, the "can you say that again" moments, because those are what make you fluent, not perfect English, but brave English. So if you're listening to this and you're waiting for the right moment to speak, let me tell you something. The moment is now. Don't wait until your accent is gone. Don't wait until your grammar is flawless. Don't wait until someone else invites you. Force your mouth to speak, and then take it into the world. Start with a smile, a "hey, how's it going?" a joke, a compliment, a comment about the weather. Say something, anything, even if it's awkward. Especially if it's awkward, because that's how real fluency is born, one brave sentence at a time. Looking back now, I don't even recognize the girl who used to sit in silence. The girl who kept her lips sealed because she was afraid her English would come out wrong. The girl who avoided eye contact in stores because even small talk felt terrifying. The girl who knew the words in her head but couldn't bring them to her mouth. Yeah, that girl was me. But not anymore, because I stopped waiting for the fear to disappear. I stopped waiting to feel ready. I stopped waiting for someone to pull the words out of me. Instead, I pulled them out myself. I forced my mouth to talk in English, even when it felt strange, even when my voice cracked, even when I sounded like a beginner. I did it anyway, and every awkward sentence, every small conversation, every brave little word, it added up. And now, I don't need to force it anymore. Because English lives in me now, not just in my mind but in my mouth, in my real conversations, in my real life. So if you're watching this and you're feeling stuck, maybe your mouth still feels frozen, or you're scared people won't understand you, let me say this clearly. You don't need more confidence to speak, you need more Practice speaking even without confidence. You already know more English than you think. What's missing is the voice to bring it out. So don't keep it locked inside your head. Say it out loud, repeat after videos, talk to yourself, talk to strangers, talk to the world. Be awkward, be messy, be brave, because one day, just like me, you'll look back and realize your English voice was always there, it just needed you to open your mouth and set it free. So go on, speak, whisper, shout, repeat, try again. It's your turn now, you've got this.